Seriously, one of the best trilogies I have ever read. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew, and today we are doing another Why You Should Read for David Gemmell's Troy Trilogy. But before we get into that, make sure you are liking and subscribing, hitting that bell notification so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content. Also make sure you're checking that description box down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord, as well as links to all my social media and information about my Patreon, where I do quarterly giveaways, video chats with my patrons, general discussions, exclusive content, and my weekly wrap-up. That said, guys, let's jump right on into this Why You Should Read. Because, guys, I initially started this series. It was put on my radar by my good friend Sarah Reads. She's absolutely fantastic. And so she pinged me, this must have been like 6-7 months ago. She was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing another buddy read, and, these are fun, and would you want to join me for reading Lord of the Silver Bow? And I said yes, and then finally it came time for the buddy read, and I sat down, knowing I love David Gemmell, and then had my socks blown off. So basically, the Troy Trilogy is the last series that David Gemmell wrote before he passed. And in fact, the last book, Fall of Kings, was finished by his wife, Stella, and I believe it was either the editor or the somebody within the publishing house helped Stella kind of match David Gemmell's tone and then finish out this series. And 95% of the way, it works. Fall of Kings was a fantastic conclusion. And I gotta say, from where he started in Legend to where we end up at Fall of Kings, throughout the breadth of David Gemmell's work, he just blows me away as an author. And if he was still alive, in fact, his birthday just recently passed. I believe he would have been around 72 if he was still alive today. That's neither here nor there. Let's talk about these books. Now, basically, these books factor in on the inciting Troy incident that, most people know about in the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. But this takes like an historical fantasy approach to it. And speaking of historical fantasy, this series, if you want to get into historical fiction, but you don't just want to jump in cold, and you want a nice transition series, say like me, you mainly read epic fantasy, adult fantasy, heroic fantasy, things of that nature, and you want to get into historical fiction, this series is perfect. Because it's basically historical fiction, except it takes the mythological aspects of that society and then kind of weaves that into the narrative and makes that real. So we've got our seers, we've got our prophets, we've got, potentially gods and things of that nature. That they worship the gods, but the gods don't actually appear and things of that nature. But a lot of the prophecy and a lot of what the seers say can come true. And it's just awesome. Like I was saying, this focuses in on the inciting Troy Trilogy that most people in, at least the United States that I know of, learn of in high school. And of course that's, Odysseus and Agamemnon and Priam. And this takes a different spin on it. I should say Hector as well, because Hector is in this series as well. But basically, what ends up happening here is it takes that narrative and reframes it a little bit and makes the Iliad and all of that more like a legend. And then this would be what actually happened. And even then, if this is what had actually happened, it would be so awesome. It feels more realistic. Achilles, who appears in the series, of course, doesn't have the tendon and stuff like that. And things that you think are going to happen in a specific way don't. They still happen, but in new ways that have been kind of freshened up and delivered to the reader in a more realistic way. To me as a reader, it's always been silly that the Trojan horse incident is a bunch of warriors climbed up into a Trojan horse. And if you think that's going to happen within this Troy Trilogy, think again, you get something a little different. And it's just really kind of inspiring to take this, 1,000-year-old tale and put a really fresh but believable spin on it. And that is what David Gemmell has done here. Now, if you keep hearing me talking about Trojan horses and Hector and Achilles and all of this, all of that's in the Fall of Kings. The first book is Lord of the Silver Bow, where we follow Helicaon. Helicaon is one of the kings of the area. There are a lot of kings. I don't remember all of the kingdom names or anything like that. Basically, as a young boy, Odysseus, the ugly king, took him underneath his wing and kind of raised him up after his father was very, very cruel to him and kind of just didn't want him as his heir. And Odysseus, set about making sure that, Helicaon lived to adulthood. And basically what's ended up happening is Agamemnon, who is a very famous king from that era, has gone to see the prophets. They've said, hey, you are going to live on in infamy for thousands and thousands of years. You will be remembered. You will be a legend. However, this Helicaon guy is going to be a thorn in your side. You should probably get rid of him. But be warned, if you do go after him, he could be the inciting incident that leads to your downfall, like this king prior from, myth and legend. And Agamemnon's like, yeah, okay, I've got all this money. I've got all these troops. I've got everything going for me. I can take care of Helicaon. Well, Helicaon proves to be very hard to kill in this series. It's very awesome kind of following Helicaon because, he's an innovator. He empowers craftsmen and inventors. He creates a longboat much larger than any currently on the seas, to where, he has to hire innovators and things of that nature. They put fire launchers on this boat, everything. It's awesome. The battles in this series are just frenetic. The characterization and the grudges are real. But basically, what this trilogy does is it takes a bunch of animosity and boils it down and then layers that animosity that then leads to the Battle of Troy. And of course, when we're talking about the Troy incident, we then need to talk about Helen, because Helen was the great beauty who was captured and taken off to Troy, and, they went and fought a battle over her hand to get her back. None of that happens here in this trilogy. In fact, Helen is barely mentioned. But essentially what we've got here is, like I mentioned earlier, we've got prophecy that is woven into Helicaon's life, and into Priam's life, and into Hector's life. However, even though Helen isn't really mentioned, what we do have is we have a very strong female protagonist in Andromache. And basically, she is this priestess off on this island who is then called to Troy to be a replacement wife for Hector. And where we kind of fall with Andromache is this is where we start dealing with prophecy, because, very early on in the series, she is told you are going to have 3 great loves. And then we kind of start dealing with these 3 great loves being woven in, and we've got some intrigue, and we've got some unrequited love, and then if that love is requited, then it's forbidden love. It's awesome. Andromache is a fantastic character. There's Argorios in the first book. Argorios is this Meineke, I believe is how it's pronounced. A Meineke, which is Agamemnon's people. He's this great warrior who is very honor-bound. Basically, there are a lot of just great characters in this series, and I feel like if I tried to talk about them all, I'm going to sit here and start rambling like I've already started doing. But as this series progresses, we take all of the inciting incidents that were in Lord of the Silver Bow, and then we shift over into Shield of Thunder. Shield of Thunder is basically the inciting incident of basically, hey, I've had enough of your crap, we're going to go to war. And then by the time we get to the Fall of Kings, it's, okay, we are in the middle of the war. This book spans many years. We do time jumps, all sorts of stuff. It is absolutely awesome, and this is, David Gemmell's magnum opus. This is one of the best series that I have read this year. I gave each book 5 stars for great action, great pacing, great characterization, just interesting ideas, repackaging an already old tale. I say old, I mean ancient tale, and making it fresh, and making it, I wasn't able to second guess anything, and then taking a character like Odysseus, the ugly king, and making him this great tale spinner, this great warrior, this reformed man, and even then at the end, it alludes to the Odyssey at the very end of the story. Because, of course, you know, he's not going to, like, reinvent the wheel that much. David Gemmell's very much going to stay true to what the Troy was, but give it to you in a new way. And then there's also some really great stuff here. If you're paying attention, that there's some great Easter eggs to be found. One absolutely blew my mind. I don't want to talk about it because, frankly, if I give it to you, it's not as rewarding. Guys, this is a series that I highly recommend you pick up. Will appeal to lovers of epic fantasy. This will appeal to lovers of historical fiction, or this will appeal to lovers of historical fantasy. For me, guys, this was a flawless series. I absolutely loved this. I could sit here and talk to you for another 20 minutes, but obviously I've already been rambling. Just go ahead and do yourself a favor and pick up the Troy Trilogy by David Gemmell. I absolutely loved this series. That said, guys, thanks for sticking here with me as I ramble on about a series that I absolutely enjoyed and loved and have been enthralled by, and am super sad that I've already finished. But I will revisit this one again in the future. You can be sure. So please make sure you are liking and subscribing so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content. And as always, guys, till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.